All right, hello everybody. If you haven't already, please click the Zoom button to hopefully stay in the meeting. Thank you for joining us today for our October Eloqua User Group meeting. I'm your host, Karin Pindle. I'm gonna share my screen here and get us going. And we're gonna talk about dogs today and Eloqua with dogs. Just kidding. Okay, so a little bit about myself, for those of you who don't know me. I think a lot of you do at this point, but I have been in the marketing world for the last 16 years. I've been an Eloqua user the entire time. I use Eloqua at Sojourn. We have Salesforce CRM and a bunch of other MarTech and technology. But anyway, Eloqua is near and dear to my heart. I worked at Eloqua for 4 years before Oracle bought them and stayed at Oracle for about a year. So I've mostly over my career, I was a user for 4 years as a marketing practitioner, and then I switched over to consulting 12 years ago. So I've worked with lots of smart people on the customer end at Oracle and other partners like Adobe and Salesforce, and have seen people taught me a heck of a lot. My whole goal with this Eloqua User Group, hopefully for you guys, it's pretty clear, is to help you as Eloqua users stay in the know and share with you information that will help you get more value from Eloqua and learn about other solutions that can help you to do that with Eloqua, whether they're Oracle or not. And today we're going to have an Oracle solution presented, but also we're going to have a non-Oracle solution presented that is from a third-party partner of Oracle's that creates apps for Eloqua and other platforms. So anyway, and just a little personal note here. Well, I'm in Tennessee, and 2 weeks ago, I was in upstate New York near the Hudson Valley and did a walk to end Alzheimer's, which is one of the most popular dementia. One of my best college friends there, Megan, at the bottom with her dog, lost her dad in July to Alzheimer's, unfortunately, and just want to share with you an important cause to my life. And I think it's also October. It is in some part of the world, mental health awareness. So I know there's all these different causes out there, but just trying to hit on every couple Eloqua User Group meetings, try to hit on one or two of them here and there to remind us of the work we're doing here at our jobs, and hopefully, donating and or spending time volunteering outside of work to make a difference in the world. And forget Eloqua for a minute, but I've actually worked with a few nonprofits that use Eloqua, which is pretty dang cool to see that happen. I don't believe the Alzheimer's organization does, but anyway. And the walk, of course, wouldn't be any fun without being, well, a little bit more fun than just walking around a field with a bunch of mosquitoes. So we did a little piggyback ride there with my fiance. And if you do have any interest in learning more about this cause, there's the link act.alz.org. But if anybody here, and the chances are pretty darn good, unfortunately, that you have been impacted, or somebody in your family or network of loved ones has been impacted by, I'm sorry, this shouldn't say mental health awareness, but it should say Alzheimer's. I feel for you, and thoughts and healing to those who are going through this. Okay, so back to what we're here for. So I'm going to start really quick with those relevant reminders I always do at the beginning to keep you in the Eloqua know, some of the hottest things for Eloqua users to think about. Then I'm going to switch over. Brandon from Oracle is going to present about Oracle Unity, just an overview of it. He's going to show us a peek into it with a demo and tie it back to benefits for us as Eloqua users. And then we're going to switch over to David from SureShot. I've known David for many, many years, back to the Eloqua days. Before Eloqua was bought by Oracle. But anyway, he has a company he started years ago called SureShot. They have created lots of apps for Eloqua in other platforms, but one of my favorites amongst their apps are their mobile app for Eloqua, which does some cool stuff. Not going to steal his thunder. He's going to share with us what it can do so you guys can understand. I hear from people a lot, they want to get into mobile marketing and they don't always know what that means and the possibilities. And it's not just SMS, right? You can do automated voice messages, you can do push notifications, in-app notifications, and hopefully analyze it and make sure it's all working. But anyway, he's going to delve into that. And then I'll tie off really quickly on the latest updates related to Eloqua changes to hopefully minimize the impact of Apple's mail privacy protection that was rolled out in their iOS update last month. I just actually updated my phone to it a few days ago and was like, oh, got that question from Apple of, do I want to enable this or not? And of course, the enable's on the top and the, no, I don't want to enable it, it's below. So I enabled it. But not a lot has changed there, so I'll be very quick. And then we'll open it up for questions. If you do have any questions anytime during this meeting, please pop those into the Q&A. If you're watching this recording, then you can just email me. Feel free to reach out. And if I need to reach out to Brandon or David, I will track them down to get an answer to your question. And if we don't know, we'll figure it out. We'll use our network to figure out the answer for you. And I will send you this recording in about a couple months. Just kidding. I'm actually going to send it out later today. That's always the goal, is to be timely. And if I were you guys, I'd want to get it and just know that I have it by the end of the day. And hopefully nobody ends up like this chick here, totally bored by today's presentation. So that's our goal, not to be boring. Okay. So the relevant reminders, this actually didn't change much from September, just removed one thing from it. But if you're on pod 6, your pod tomorrow is moving to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or people call that OCI. So just as a reminder, I do this whenever there's something related to finding your pod in Eloqua. So when you log into Eloqua, anywhere you navigate, you'll always see PO, whatever pod you're on. We're on pod 3. Obviously, you can see that right there, the 3. But if you're on pod 6, you'll know that by just logging into Eloqua and looking into the URL. It's nothing crazy. You don't need to hire anybody to figure that out. But so pod 6, you guys are up next. Pod 7 was the first one, I believe, to go. What does this really mean? So hopefully we all, once we get all Eloqua, everybody's Eloqua to OCI, improvements and like the speed of things is one of the key things. But so what you'll need to do is you're going to have a new public IP address for your Eloqua instance, and you'll need to whitelist that internally. You could also, it's recommended to whitelist secure.po6.eloqua.com. Not going to go into too much more detail there, but you can feel free to reach out to Oracle support if you have questions with this, or myself. And for those on pods 1 through 4, that will happen next year. There have not been dates confirmed yet for when all the other pods are migrating. It's a big effort on the Oracle end to do this, because there are, as you guys likely know, thousands and thousands of Eloqua instances out there. A reminder, if you want Eloqua free training, of course you can do paid training through Oracle University. If you want some free training, the Help Center is it's always my first go-to when I need to either look up something I don't know, which definitely there are things today, or that have become new features, or that I just want to refresh myself on. The Help Center is where I would recommend going first and foremost. It will link out to the YouTube videos they have. They've embedded those in the Help Center, but the YouTube Eloqua channel, which is a part of the Oracle Marketing Cloud channel, has a lot of videos that you don't have to pay anybody to watch. And then Oracle University does have some classes that you can take, to like the Eloqua Explorer class. This is the link to it here. But if you just Google Eloqua Explorer training, you'll be able to link to that, and you don't have to have a paid Oracle University user or license or subscription. There's like 12 different names for it. And then the last thing is, any of these Eloqua User Group meetings, we do them every month of the year. This is, I think we're coming up on almost 2 years of doing it. We started it last March. My math is not good, but anyway, it's not 2 years yet. If you miss one, or you want to go back and watch a part of it, like maybe you really liked what David or Brandon showed in their demo and you want to go back, the recordings are on our website. They go there before I send you guys the email linking to them. So you can always feel free to reference them. And there's a recap on the page where the recording is of what the topics were, to hopefully help you to find the recording that you want to take a look at. So that's it. There haven't been any like groundbreaking updates to Eloqua, like I'm going to touch on with Apple Mail privacy protection. Nothing groundbreaking there. So if you have any questions about these things, just let me know. And I think I mentioned this, but please put your questions in the Q&A. What we're going to do is go into Unity first with Brandon. So Abbas and Brandon put together their heads to come up with this presentation, some slides, and then into Unity to show you some things, and then tying it back into Eloqua. Brandon's going to run the show, but we wanted to just give them both credit for helping to put this together. What I will say is we only are giving them 20 minutes. I've only given them 20 minutes because we want to cover other topics. That's not a lot to share about any CDP. CDPs are such powerful tools, customer data platform, that's what that stands for. So Brandon's going to dive right into it. But if you have questions, if you want to see a demo like specific to your business, or just ask more questions, what I would recommend is Sojourn. We're not yet Oracle CDP experts. My goal is for us to get there, hopefully in the next 2 years. But anyway, I would go to Oracle and ask them, like your Oracle rep or application sales manager, whoever you have, account manager. That's who I would start with if you have more specific questions about Oracle CDP. But during the call meeting today, please pop your questions into the Q&A and we'll get to them as quickly as we can. So with that, Brandon, I'm going to hand it over to you to delve into CDP for us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, KP. Let me start sharing my screen. And hello, everyone. Again, my name is Brandon Ray. Can you guys see that screen?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So I am a solution engineer here on our marketing cloud team at Oracle. Unfortunately, Abbas is currently in the airport, so I will actually be presenting all of the content today. But before we actually dive into the Unity demo, as KP mentioned, I do want to kick things off with just a few slides to help really set the stage regarding what Oracle Unity is, our perspective on the customer data platform landscape, and really how it can be used. So the first question I really want to answer is, why should you care about a customer data platform? How does an aggregated view of your customer information with some additional predictive intelligence really help your business? And there are a number of benefits that we've kind of called out here on the slide. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but I just want to highlight a few. One being, better lead quantity, quality, thanks to a more focused approach to understanding both unknown visitors and some known customer behaviors and actions. Increased conversion rates through more personalized messaging and additional sales or service touch points. And then also enhanced account or customer lifetime value, since you have a better understanding of how to connect with specific customers or groups of customers and actually grow their value over time. So how does this all work? Well, in terms of our approach to the CDP, let's give this a second to load here. Essentially, there's three, there we go. There's really three core functions that the customer data platform solves for. I'll spend just a minute going over each of these shortly, but at a high level, we capture information from a variety of different sources. We then enrich that data with artificial intelligence and some machine learning models to actually help understand a customer and what they're likely to do next. And then we actually make use of that aggregated profile and the output of all our models on a downstream activation platform like Eloqua, but also some non-marketing platforms like a sales or service system. So the end result of this process really does involve stitching together a customer identity, as you can see here, as they transition from an unknown site visitor to a known customer. So as I mentioned, the first and probably the most important aspect of Unity in a CDP is really being able to truly understand your customer. So with Unity, we have the ability to unify profile information from multiple sources, whether that be Eloqua, your website, an app, a CRM, your ERP, other back office applications, or other sources of first-party data. We're big proponents of creating a master customer record that is deduplicated based on all of your sources. So you get one view of each customer that includes the hundreds of different data points, whether that be related to profile, behavioral, transactional, or any other data type that you'd want to associate with a person, account, product, or any other master data type, as we'll see today. So great, we have a unified profile for each contact, for each account. What next? Well, let's actually use some artificial intelligence and some propensity modeling that is pretty unique to Oracle to actually predict what customers need. What are they in the market for? What offers are likely to attract them? This is a huge benefit, and it can really help reduce some of the guesswork that's typically associated with the marketing or sales process. We really want to let our algorithms and machine learning do their jobs and automatically help you provide the perfect offers, the perfect messaging based on each individual customer and those hundreds of unique data points that actually tell Unity who they are and how they're likely to buy. And then finally, once we've actually figured out what customers need, let's actually tie all that data back and start activating it to generate revenue. So one of the benefits that we'll discuss really is the flexibility that Unity provides to activate that data, again, not only across marketing, advertising platforms, but also in your sales and service systems, making sure that everything we deliver is personalized in real time based on that profile information we've compiled and the intelligence that we've derived using our predictive models. So last couple slides here before we actually get to the demo. Now, one of the things that I will continue to emphasize is how Unity and Eloqua work together. I am aware this is a Eloqua Users Group. So, we view Eloqua really as an activation channel. And as you're all aware, you can really use Eloqua to plan customers' journeys and actually reach out via some touch points. But Unity can essentially supercharge your Eloqua instance, and as shown here, as well as your account-based marketing strategy, by feeding Eloqua some highly targeted segments, or actually recommending specific products or specific actions and personalization strategies, which can then actually be executed downstream in Eloqua. So I'll just end with a very quick customer example. And while we don't actually have approval to use their formal logo, we do actually work with the world's largest telco provider. They purchased Unity specifically for this B2B use case. They're using it to connect 23 different data sources together for 74 million different customer profiles, just to help give you an idea of some of this scale in practice. And like many companies, they had a lot of issues really understanding who their customer was and what their customers doing across all the different systems that they've acquired over the years. So our Oracle team actually sat down with them and helped create a single unified view of each customer, each account, and really gave their marketing, their sales, their service teams an extremely clear picture of who to target, how to personalize messages, again, not only in outbound communication from Eloqua, but also all of their outbound sales calls or sales emails, and even give their service teams a little bit more visibility on those accounts and on those profiles. So you can think about these service opportunities as upsell because they're aware of that customer profile and they're aware of what offers, what products might be most relevant to discuss with the customer. Now, this customer is also able to uncover new segments that they actually hadn't considered targeting. And that was actually a big benefit. It did lead to a big increase in some qualified sales opportunities as well. Perfect. So let me actually get into the platform demo here quickly. And as KP mentioned, I typically spend 60 minutes explaining all the different components of Unity. So it's pretty much impossible to show everything that the system can do in the time we have. But I do want to just showcase a few components related to the data model, the profile explorer, some of that data deduplication, and then I will end with segmentation, and then a little bit of how it works in Eloqua as well. Now, the data model is really the foundation for how all your data sources are organized within Unity. So it's a big and important component to cover even in our short demo. So the question that we're answering here is, how are you going to organize all the data that you're aggregating from these different sources? Now, what's great is we do offer a number of out-of-the-box data schemas. So one what we're going to cover today is actually our B2B focused data schema, but you have the flexibility to completely customize the data model to fit your needs as well. And you're going to hear me stress this often today, but the flexibility and ability to actually customize nearly every aspect of the platform is a true strength of Unity. So what are we looking at here? Well, first, I actually want to draw your attention to some of the default data objects on the top menu here. So first, we have profile, which actually stores some of that demographic type information. We have behavioral, which tracks information related to some specific marketing actions, such as email clicks, web page views, or actually a number of other granular actions that we can capture in real time thanks to our Infinity technology. And that's actually included as part of the Unity platform. A little bit of a plug for next time. I will be showcasing some of that Infinity technology in the next Eloqua Users Group. So stay tuned if you're interested in terms of how we get some of that real-time information here. But moving along today, we also have transactional, helpful for some of that order or sales information. You can also see we can associate specific sales in this B2B instance with an actual sales associate that completed that. Product, helpful for categorizing specific product details from a product catalog. And then we also have this other, which really serves as a catch-all for some other generic attributes as well. Now, as you can also probably see, each section has its associated objects and attributes as well. And for today's example, I did want to walk through both the account object as well as the customer object. And so if we look at the account object that's highlighted here, you can see some typical attributes that you might imagine. We have things like the currency, we have things, there's the employee total, we have actually the stock symbol, just some generic out of the box options here. You also have the ability to actually set account hierarchies with parent companies and subsidiaries as well. I'll also highlight some of the default attributes for the customer. Again, some things that you typically associate: age, first name, last name, phone number. Even primary language is one of the things that we can capture just by default. And I want to show you again how easy it is to add some of these out-of-the-box attributes as well. So I'll click this plus icon, and maybe you want to add something like company tenure. Maybe that's a very important thing that we want to track alongside this data model. We can easily add that here. We have the ability to actually use what's called the attribute group if you actually want to get a little bit more organized in terms of how these attributes are associated. If you want to group these in more of like parent-child relationship, as we'll see shortly. And then again, a lot of flexibility regarding the specific data type. So this could be a date, an integer, a Boolean yes or no, a text string. Maybe I'll set this as an integer because again, we're tracking something like a tenure, how long someone's been in a company. Now, another thing I'll just quickly call out, you may notice this data density field. This is important as we're trying to understand the data that you've collected. So this actually shows you the percent of records in your CDP in Unity that actually have this attribute populated. So we can see only 55% of our attributes actually have an email associated with them. So a little bit different from Eloqua. You can use all these different fields and you don't have to just have email be a primary key, for example. The only other thing I'll just quickly showcase is this details tab here. So again, for the data scientist nerds in the room, this is a really easy way to actually create additional relationships between objects. So you can see here that we actually have this customer object being mapped to a few different objects: order, address, via this customer ID value. And similarly to the attributes, you have the ability to actually define these linkages and attributes very easily from the screen as well via new parent-child relationships. So I actually did want to show a very simple example of how some of this information can be aggregated and actually presented to a sales, service, marketing rep, for example. Now, the example I'm showing today is just for an individual customer profile, but again, you could easily aggregate account-based information in a very similar way. Now, before I even go through this demo example, I do want to emphasize that we have many customers who actually prefer not to use what I'm about to showcase here, this Profile Explorer. And the benefit here is that actually everything you see or anything that's stored in that Unity data model could be exported to your CRM or a custom sales view outside of Unity. But I really just want to spark the conversation around the benefits and practicality of getting all of this data in one place. So again, simple example here. You can see we have some information related to the profile: first name, email address, phone number. We also have some high-level metrics at the top related to some of this customer lifetime value that we're aggregating, and some customer-specific metrics that we've identified as very important to understand this customer at a glance. Now, beneath that, we do have a couple different tabs related to information that has been pulled and aggregated from those multiple systems. So this transaction tab can pull information from commerce systems, ERPs, backend order management, and we can map all of that to highlight, again, just the most important things that maybe our marketing, sales, or service teams might care about. We also have a behavior tab. We can gather behavioral information. Again, some of this demo data is really slanted towards channels like email, SMS, push. But again, this is really just meant to convey an idea of what this could look like once we have all this information together in one source. Now, a couple things that this demo account doesn't actually highlight, but I do want to discuss, and we'll come back to it as well. The first is our ability to highlight some of those next best recommendations. So I kind of mentioned when we were talking about the slides that Unity can recommend a specific product or a specific action to take with this individual customer or account. Now, we can also embed some additional third-party account information. So in one example, could be pulling data from our account intelligence tool and actually showing things like company firmographic information or recent company signals, like has a company completed some new hires, some acquisitions, or made recent product announcements. Those types of things could also be highlighted in some of the view here. Again, really the goal is to stitch together a profile or account level view, again, for marketing, sales, service, whatever team would need to have this quick information before they even pick up the phone or send an email, and really present it in a way that is straightforward and clear. So another thing that I also wanted to chat through are our master entities. And actually, let me do this from this other tab, because this is our B2B example. So master entities, I'm not going to have much time to actually go through this, unfortunately. But once we've actually gone through the process of how we store the data, it is important to actually clean and standardize the data. So we're bringing data from so many different sources. It's important to have a process in place to deduplicate records together. And that's exactly what I want to showcase with this master entities module. So this essentially allows you to control the overall data pipeline in the application. We have some specific rules to help with deduplication, help with data promotion to create master data objects, as we're seeing here. So we can see that we have a master account as well as a master customer, but it's actually important to call out, you can define as many master entities as you see fit. So one example, you can actually have a master product entity, which is an aggregation of different product information from different systems, or even a master campaign entity aggregating multiple different marketing campaigns together for one master campaign object. Anything else that you really want to deduplicate and put into one record, that can happen within Unity. So this first graphic actually really helps visualize what is happening in the system. Again, just demo data, but we're essentially starting with 36,000 different customer records and then running them through this process to deduplicate and some promotion rules to arrive at this cleaned up, consolidated 28,000 records, which actually belong to what's called our master customer object. Now, unfortunately, again, we don't have time to dive into the logic and the rules here, but really there are two steps that you can see. First, there's the deduplication to actually figure out how would we combine these records. And then there's the promotion criteria, which actually allows you to aggregate those cleaned up records and output them and store them in a master object. And again, as I mentioned, there's a lot of flexibility to aggregate different sources based on various matching algorithms and grouping preferences. Perfect. So again, we've cleaned up a bunch of aggregated customer or account records. Now, how would we actually use some of this data in practice? Now, one use case that I'll cover today is through segmentation. Now, another thing I do want to emphasize is, again, that point of comparison in terms of how we view Unity, and we really see it as a data-first tool. And as I mentioned, a platform like Eloqua is really a tool to activate this data. And so I really want to help paint the picture that, yes, while there is some segmentation capabilities that I'm sure you're all aware of in Eloqua, Unity could really be used as a primary segmentation tool, given it's a little bit better at collecting and utilizing data from all those different sources. And again, adding that additional insight that might not be as readily available in a platform like Eloqua. So again, essentially supercharging what you already may be doing in Eloqua, giving you the flexibility to use more data points with some added intelligence. So I'll quickly walk through the sample segment that I've pre-created. Essentially what we're looking at here, we're finding corporate executives who live in California. Maybe they've been previously targeted from one of our promotional campaigns. And they also satisfy some specific high order value intelligent attributes. Again, this is based on a master customer, but you can base this segmentation on master accounts or any other object. That's another big difference between an Eloqua or a Unity, for example. So we have a couple different categories on the right-hand side. We have smart data as well as my data. Now, my data actually just gives you access to all the data points that we saw in our Unity data model, which is why I started there. So you can easily search there or filter by some of those specific data types as well. Smart data actually gives you a little bit more specificity to some of the attributes that you might want to use. So favorites and my segments are essentially allowing you to embed segments within segments. You can see I've actually starred a few, and then the my segments category gives you access to all of the already existing segments in your Unity situation, your Unity instance. So if you wanted to just reuse something that's a template, you could easily do that here. Now, intelligent attributes are actually pre-computed aggregated metrics that output a derived value. And we're going to see an example of that shortly here. But then the last thing I'll call out on the right-hand menu in smart data is the data enrichment. So I kind of alluded to this before. You might have existing relationships with third-party data providers. You can actually work with Oracle and our Oracle advertising division to access some of our third-party data, as well as our DataFox account intelligence information that's sourced from over 8.5 million companies across the open web using some natural language processing and artificial intelligence, again, to get you information on specific accounts. But let me just quickly clarify what we're looking at again in the middle. So we kind of have these different buckets. You can think of those like orders of operations. So we have the ability to actually flip this to all or any based on these different segments. We also have the ability to actually exclude specific options. And you can see that's denoted by a purple icon here as well. Let me actually give you an example of something that we might want to add to a specific section. So we'll see here, maybe we want to add an intelligent attribute to this middle area. And we want to find people who've purchased something recently. Maybe it's been 5 months since their last, or haven't purchased something recently. So you can see I've added an intelligent attribute that's aggregated based on all the purchase information they have. So maybe you want to find someone whose last purchase was greater than 5 months. We can easily do that. And another thing I'll point out was really helpful about Unity is you can get counts in real time for all of these. So we can actually click this, this count arrow here, and it will reload and calculate all of these in real time. Another thing that's helpful, you'll notice that we have some bands associated with some of these other intelligent attributes. So the average order band, as well as the total spent amount. So we actually have the flexibility to change those again to specific criteria or flip those back to actual bands, again, just for ease of use and speed here, if we want to select specific bands of these actual order values or total amount spent. So the last thing I'll just quickly do before I wrap up with Eloqua quickly is showcase one other type of segment that we could possibly use. So maybe we actually want to go through and find, if people have actually indicated that they're okay to be emailed. So marketing permissions is another thing we can aggregate from an Eloqua or another system like that. So maybe we want to add in and say, hey, they've indicated that they're not okay to email, so we're actually going to exclude those records from the specific segment. And again, as before, we can update all these counts in real time and see the actual values associated with this. So I know I only have about 1 minute left of my 20-minute allotted time. I do want to quickly showcase how some of this information can be used on the Eloqua side as well. Again, one thing we weren't able to show is actually how to create those next best recommendations. But again, Unity can use artificial intelligence, all those customer touch points as inputs to determine what product they're likely to be interested in, or actually what action they're likely to take. Maybe they're going to reach out to your service team and really use that output to personalize some of the content or outbound messaging in Eloqua. So the very simple example here, essentially using what's called the CX or the Unity Feeder app in place of just a regular Eloqua segment. Then we're actually using a couple of different variables here from Unity. First off, we have a decision step to actually split the workflow based on the total customer lifetime value. That's one of the attributes that we saw that was aggregated in the Profile Explorer view. So if they have a high customer lifetime value, then we're actually going to send them an email with some dynamic content based on the next best offered product. Again, using that Unity next best recommendation and say, hey, we know they're likely in market for product A or product B. So send them an email with some dynamic content based on what product Unity has recommended for us. And then again, maybe we're going to move them to a follow-up list or move them to a nurture campaign. Again, very simple example, but hopefully this helps really connect the dots in terms of how some of this data and how some of these segments can be used within Unity.
Fantastic, Brandon. Thank you. So like he said, typically he spends 60 minutes at the minimum on something like this. And just a few takeaways for myself and hopefully for everybody else here to kind of recap. Customer data platforms or CDPs, Oracle's versus Unity, there are like 40 of them on the market. It's becoming one of those marketing solutions that's becoming infiltrated. Oracle's been working on this for years. And just keep in mind, Oracle's always been a data company. Like that's their big thing. Adobe's creative. It's great with Photoshop and things like that. But this integration they already have for Eloqua with Unity is ahead of a lot of others out there. A real integration. And a lot of companies are like, oh yeah, there's an integration. And you find out, well, you got to use custom API coding to make that integration. So it's not really plug and play or out of the box. But, obviously segmentation on steroids for Eloqua will help improve your performance of whatever type of campaign you're doing. if you're leveraging the channel of email or text messaging or print or gifting, whatever it might be, we can reach people better at the right time in their journey. And the other big thing is just stepping outside of Eloqua for a minute. We're seeing customers get a CDP because they do have so many data sources. They're disjointed. That is a super common challenge. I have very few customers that I work with today at Sojourn and over the years that don't have that challenge. And also the ability for a CDP to help clean that data. It makes sense of it, mix and match. So CDPs are like a new platform with an interface to do that. People have been doing that for decades with data lakes, internal homegrown databases, and access data. Like there's just so many different ways of doing this, but the whole idea of a CDP is it's built by a company like Oracle, et cetera, to make an interface where you don't have to know SQL coding, et cetera, to make those connections. It's trying to make it easier to make sense of your 20 data sources, pull in the right attributes or fields worth of data, clean the data, deduplicate the data without it taking weeks for somebody to do just one of those tasks. So that was a big takeaway for me a while ago, I think last year when I first learned about CDPs. And I did put in the chat, there's an article Oracle wrote and various others have too about what's the difference between a CDP and a DMP. So you can take a look at that. And I also included the link to Eloqua's Help Center to see more details about that integration with Unity and Eloqua. So we need to move on to the next topic. So I'm grateful that we have David York here from Sonicgun. Let me get my screen sharing. So critical for me to show the screen here. So David York, like I mentioned earlier, he founded SureShot some years ago, and they build apps for Eloqua and other platforms. They also have their own products that do some pretty dang cool things related to data, et cetera. He's going to talk to us about their mobile app for Eloqua today. We'll probably have him come back again and talk about some other apps they have for Eloqua that we have customers using and know that are successful doing so. And I just pulled this from his Facebook because I know he's a family guy. And anyway, so David, thank you for joining us. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Karin. Appreciate it. And I have 3 dogs at my feet, so fingers crossed that nobody knocks on the door. My dog sitter, she left, and I was like, oh, okay, well, we're just gonna go with it. So
good luck. I had to lock mine in the bedroom because
yeah,
we'll
be all right. I think we'll be okay. Let me know if you can see my screen. Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
All right. Awesome. Well, I appreciate the time, everybody. Happy to join you. And Karin, thanks for the invite. Brandon, you get the gold medal for taking an hour-long demo and squeezing it into 20 minutes. So kudos to you for that. So just a quick note on SureShot. We really help marketers orchestrate every aspect of their revenue engine. And we do that through software integrations and services. One of the things we believe and we know just from the experience we've had and the 100+ years of combined Eloqua experience we have on our team is that, sometimes technology is part of the solution, and sometimes, adding additional integration capabilities is part of the solutions. And sometimes you just need some services capabilities. And we work with, companies like Sojourn on that side of things as well to bring them into customers and help this and help us get to outcomes. At the end of the day, it's all about achieving customer outcomes and getting you where you want to go. So at a high level, right, as marketers, we're still doing the same things we've always done for the last decades. Unfortunately, we're just doing them in a different way, right? We have a very complex MarTech stack that sits below the surface. And so from a technology standpoint on the SureShot side, what we really focus on is saying, all right, can we help fill in the gaps and enrich and enable additional capabilities that sit between the outcomes and the metrics and the success that you're trying to generate as marketers and your MarTech stack? As many of us have experienced, as your MarTech stack grows, you start running into different challenges. You may run into limitations. You may hit a roadblock. And so our technology and our solutions are really focused on that. So when we talk about what we're doing on the Eloqua front, specific to messaging, as we're going to kind of cover today, is what we describe as messaging orchestration, right? It's beyond just hey, I want to send a single message, and it goes into, hey, I really want to start sending maybe messages across channels, right? It used to be just email only. Now we're starting to get into mobile and all the different messaging applications and so on and so forth. One thing, obviously, you know, Eloqua is in the midst of releasing their SMS capabilities internally. And I will, you know, just note some of the differences here, just so you're, you know, informed in how we kind of approach this versus the Eloqua kind of native functionality. So a couple things on our front is we enable the ability to send messages from campaigns or program canvas. We can send those messages to contacts or CDOs. And then our applications basically integrate with some of the leading messaging providers across the globe. So you're probably familiar with Twilio. There's a company, Nexmo, Sench, Burst, which is local to Australia, as well as other local SMS providers. We've integrated to different providers in South America, Central America, and so forth. And part of that is just, we know as enterprises, you may have existing relationships with messaging vendors. We actually have the ability to integrate our technology to those additional vendors. The second thing I think is important is, you know, just the understanding of how messaging is expanding rapidly in both the B2C and B2B space. We have customers that are using multiple different messaging channels in B2B situations and scenarios. And they're using that, you know, integrated to Eloqua. So we're constantly expanding our messaging channel capabilities. We do that through those partner relationships and those vendors like Twilio that we mentioned. But we go beyond, you know, just those simple SMS. So for starters, you know, we support SMS and MMS, push notifications, voice that Karin mentioned earlier, and then kind of a slew of all the other messaging platforms. And those are constantly kind of expanding as we go. And then starting in 2022, working with the release of RCS. So Google Android is going to start supporting RCS messaging. If you don't know about it, you can read up on it, or you know, you can just call me. But it's the new messaging protocol that's going across all the different you know, phone devices and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of stuff going on in messaging. We're trying to really stay ahead of the curve as far as all the different capabilities that we offer. And again, the idea that we can do this off of a campaign canvas or a program canvas. So I'll talk a bit about just a few of the features from a capability standpoint, and then we'll do a really quick demo. I don't want to take up too much time, but a few things that are important to note. So we support, in our message body, we support things like field merges for contacts and custom objects. We also support the ability to do, you know, inline URL shortening. So if you use something like Bitly, or we support, you know, any URL shortening, we can create those shortened URLs so that you can actually track, you know, did somebody click through an individual message. We additionally support dynamic content logic statements. So if we had a customer, for example, in Asia that said, hey, we want to configure a single message, but we want that single message to go out in 4 different languages based on the country of the individual. So we actually had a dynamic content message content based on the language field, and then it would send out that single message in all those different languages. And then we also support, you know, even more sophistication around custom data objects. So we can go in, for example, and say, hey, I want to pull in multiple custom data objects and render a certain element of each of those objects in a message. Or we could say, hey, there's multiple data objects linked to this person. I want to apply some logic to pull the correct one. So as an example, if I've got purchase history, I want to create, you know, pull the most recent or purchase history of a specific product. We can support that logic in the message body so that you can, you know, have really, really dynamic personalized messaging. And then lastly here, before we kind of jump into the demos, we have very sophisticated auto response and keyword auto response capabilities. So we've built a lot of functionality here over the years so that you can use, cold inbound messages via text. Somebody texts into a certain number, you want to respond a certain way. We have global campaign level auto responses. We have the ability to do wildcards, special things. We've even built specific functionality for folks that are in the healthcare space around auto responses as well. And then lastly, I'll touch on some of our additional capabilities, and then we'll jump into a demo. But we also have basically an integration engine that helps support things like complex data and message orchestration. So we have a number of Eloqua customers that will come to us and say, hey, we really need to do something specific that requires either data coming from another third-party source, or we need to push data based on a message status, and we want to update some third-party system like CRM, and we want to do that in real time. So we have a platform that gives us the ability to do that and have more flexibility around MarTech integrations, complex lead management, or even multi-touch cross-channel message flows. So I'll put my contact information up here real quick, and then I'm going to jump over to a demo. It's pretty easy, david@sureshot.io or sales@sureshot.io. But let's jump over to a quick demo and talk about this. Karin, just to confirm, you can see the Eloqua screen? All right, great. So I'm looking at a campaign canvas here. Obviously, you can see we've dropped our messaging app onto the canvas, and I'm just going to go in and kind of show you a little live demo of what we talked about earlier from a message configuration standpoint. But essentially, as I mentioned, the ability to drop in this on a campaign or a program canvas, you can send to contacts, or if you have a CDO with a phone number field, we could actually send a message to that CDO. So just a quick overview of the message, building capabilities. In this case, I've got, with our Twilio app, SMS, MMS, and voice options, and then my message content. So I can go in and drop in, multiple contact field merges. I can go in and pick a specific custom object and have those custom object fields available to merge in. As I mentioned, we also then could go in and say, hey, I want to drop in, a web API call that will do, in this case, URL shortening. We actually do have an integration built into Bitly specifically, where we can actually send Bitly tracking information back into Eloqua as well. In this case, I'm got my message is using MMS, so I can upload a file or pull a specific image. So using MMS, I can send images, videos, audio files across these campaigns. So that's just a quick overview there. And then just lastly, as I mentioned, just talking about this kind of multi-channel orchestration. If I wanted to go in and trigger off an Eloqua canvas, do a phone number verification, and then start sending multiple channel messaging, I can. In this case, I went and dragged a Twilio SMS message onto this orchestration, and I can go in and just say, put in my, I better use proper grammar, because Karin will get on to me if I don't. This is a test, and then I can stitch this message together as part of that flow. And in this case, we're building these messages, we're triggering off an Eloqua canvas, and then we can return that data right back to Eloqua. I'll go ahead and just save, publish, and deploy this. So you can see, all right, now I've got a running workflow here. And this is as Eloqua's canvas sends records over, they'll start flowing through, and all of these different messages will be sent. Okay, that's it for me. I appreciate the time. Back to you, Karin.
All right. Thank you, David. And I popped some things in the chat while he was presenting, so you can see in the Oracle App Cloud or App Marketplace, Cloud Marketplace, I think the name has changed over the years, but the apps for Eloqua and other Oracle Marketing Cloud solutions, specifically their Twilio SMS, MMS app. And then I would recommend, before you get into sending out anything to somebody's phone, validate you have real phone numbers first, otherwise it will get expensive. Just ideally, at least once a year, you validate your email addresses are real. throughout the year, they're going to come in. Yes, Eloqua will mark some as hard bounces, but it's good to stay on top of it, especially if you have, say, a year where you have an initiative to get new people into the database. There's apps for that, and SureShot has one for email validation as well. I'm going to share my screen quick here. We have 10 minutes left. David, thank you for going through that. I know there's a whole bunch more that you could share as well and demo for us, but I appreciate you just boiling it down for us. And my next quick update, this will be short, guys. So nothing new in Eloqua has been changed because of Apple's change to their mail privacy. So just as a quick recap of what that is, if you don't know, in September, Apple rolled out a change for Apple Mail, which is what people use typically on like an iPhone, an iPad, a Mac device of any kind, like a desktop, or what are those things called? Most popular laptop probably in the world. Having a brain fart right now, but a lot of people use their laptops. And anyway, typically, not always, but folks will use Apple Mail to view emails. So with the change that Apple made, the users have the ability to enable what they call mail privacy protection. And that's similar to what it looks like on the right-hand side. This image shares with you. There's two options. I just had it, like I mentioned earlier, when I updated to iOS, I think it's 15, it's right up there. It gave me the option in the settings to enable this. I didn't have to go anywhere. Once the update was done, it made me choose. And I chose the default, which was to enable it. And what that means is when you send an email out of Eloqua to somebody and it goes to their Apple Mail, Apple Mail will basically do an auto open. Apple Mail is going to filter the email before it's seen by the recipient. So in that case, if that happens and I open it on my iPhone, that'll be counted as 2 opens. So those are what Oracle's calling auto opens. And there's plans to give you the ability in Eloqua Insight, the reporting tool, to filter those out of your metrics. Eventually, there is a plan to give the option in a filter of a segment, or just a filter if you're building it in general, to identify the auto opens. None of this is live yet. From what we've gathered, it's coming out in the 22A release, which means in Q1 calendar year of next year, probably around February, March timeframe. I did have a link here to where you can find out and follow the details here. So on Topliners, our user community, this is the same thing they posted back in like September, and then they've updated it. You can see last was a few weeks ago. It links to this PDF, which goes into detail about some of the stuff I'm sharing. I basically skimmed down to, impacts to Eloqua features, and there's no dates of when these are going to be live in Eloqua. All that they've mentioned by Tamina so far in that stream of comments on this article or post in Topliners is the 22A release. And I just asked her to clarify if there are any changes live now in Eloqua. I don't think that there are, from what I can interpret here, but we shall find out. And
hey, Karin, we're not seeing your screen. Sorry.
Shoot. That would be helpful. I forgot to hit the share button. It like selected the screen. Can you guys see it now? It's top line. Okay. Apologies. Imagine it in your mind there. So anyways, that's really the gist of it. More to come on when these changes will officially be in Eloqua. As of now, it is sounding like probably February or March of next year in the Eloqua 22A release. And for anybody that doesn't recall, Eloqua does a new release every quarter of the calendar year. And they announce it before they do it. They have a webinar before they do it. Oftentimes in the Eloqua User Group, I'll ask somebody from the Eloqua product team to come present about those new releases, like the features that are changing, the new features being added, etc. So we have just a few minutes here. We didn't have any questions come through the Q&A, but wanted to open it up. If anybody has a question or even like a tip you want to share with the users, please feel free to enter anything in the chat or the Q&A. You can raise your hand. Let me pull up the attendees if you want to speak, and I will make it so that you can speak. I'll give it a minute here before we tie off. Let's see here. There is a question in the chat. So is anyone having issues with links being blocked on Apple devices because of the new security? How are you getting around that? So I haven't seen that yet with any of our customers. If anybody has any input, that's Liz who asked that question. So the question was, is anyone having issues with links being blocked on Apple devices because of the new security? How are you getting around that? Well, Liz, I will take that back to our team to get some thoughts on it and get back to you. And I don't see any other questions, just people pointing out in the chat that I'm an idiot and wasn't sharing my screen. Apologies for that. I think that's going to be it for today. We'll end early, which is nice. So just a quick thank you for joining us today. I can see people are already bugging out, so I'll end this. We'll meet again next month, November 18th. It'll be Movember, so maybe there'll be some hairy guys here. That'd be great. I will send out an invitation for that officially to each one of you, so you'll get the agenda for it. I know we're going to have somebody from Oracle come and talk about Infinity IQ. So we'll share what that is and the benefits for Eloqua users specifically of Infinity IQ. Just another solution to help you get more value from Eloqua and just Oracle in general with your marketing efforts you're executing. If anybody wants to speak in an upcoming Eloqua User Group meeting, please let me know. It's the hardest part of me managing these meetings is finding people to present, and not the same people, each month. So please reach out to me if you would like to present. We're definitely looking for users, like customers of Oracle's, that would like to present. And I think that is it for now. So thank you everybody again for joining. I hope you all have a great rest of your Thursday and weekend, and stay safe, everybody. And thank you again, Brandon and David, for presenting today. Appreciate you guys doing so.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, for sure.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.